Hi everyone, welcome to Be an Artist. Today I'm here with Fausta Joly, and she's a poet. Hi Fausta.
Hi, Petra.
We met recently in November because we both performed for Women in Jazz Media at Toulouse-Lautrec. But I haven't met you before, which is strange because I feel like you always meet the same kind of people. You know, those people that do multimedia performance, you kind of meet them everywhere. So, what's your story? How did you get there?
Okay, cool. So, yes, I discovered there was an abundance of poetry events going on in this city where I'm from. I'm from London. About, I'd say, the end of 2018, summer of 2018. And I'd never really shared my work before. And suddenly I was like thrust into this world where you could go literally every single night if you wanted to. And I was popping about town sort of every week. I would try and go to an open mic and, spit my words and share my poetry. And it was really amazing to unearth this community where there's hardly any ego, and everyone is extremely welcoming. We're all there to listen and appreciate each other's words. And I kind of just fell in love with it. And it also was really humbling, and it's quite a healing space to be in.
Mhm.
And so really got immersed in that. And then I started my own poetry events, called Sip and Rhyme, where you come and you write poetry with me, and we do like a little workshop. And so, yes, I've been like hosting and sort of curating since 2019, I guess. Yeah. So it's like our third birthday this month. Sip and Rhyme's third birthday is this month. And I started working at this jazz club at the start of last year, which was funny timing. And then that's how I heard about the festival, because I was working at the venue, Toulouse-Lautrec. And yeah, that's how I got involved, really. And I wrote a poem specifically for that event called Woe Art. And it was sort of like a fairy tale-esque poem about female creativity and female artists. And then yeah, Petra was there and performed with the lovely, amazing Hylam Kim, and it was really, really cool. It was crazy. I had a headache from all the art because there wasn't one this event Resonance. There wasn't one single medium of art that wasn't represented. We had music, dance, poetry, visual art, painting, and yeah, and writing. It was insane. It was amazing.
Yeah, I think that's the strength of this event. I feel like it attacks you from all sides, like, in all senses. How did you start writing poetry?
So my mother is a poet, a writer and a poet, and I have been writing, yeah, for forever. And then basically I hit a bit of a dark moment after a breakup, as you do. And I guess I was like 26 or 27, and I was trying really hard not to be creative because I'd seen how my mother had struggled with it as well, and struggled to kind of find her path with it all. And so, but I got paid for an article, and that was it. It was like, no, this is actually really what I want to do. I need to be creative, or I don't feel fulfilled, and I'm not happy. I'm very quickly not in a good space when I'm not making or creating. And so I was sort of angry at myself, like, how can I call myself a writer when no one's seen or heard it? And then I started looking through my journals because I did sort of jot things down. And I realized that I wrote in verse, sort of accidentally, instead of like these little diary entries, I'd write in verse. And so I sort of kind of like sifted through them and sort of picked ones that I didn't think were super awful. And then started, I think I posted them online on this kind of blog spot. And then I discovered that everyone was doing it on Instagram. And Instagram, it was interesting because they were calling kind of inspirational quotes poetry. So, and I think Rupi Kaur, like who did Milk and Honey, the poet who wrote this book, Milk and Honey, and it like broke all these records. Like people were actually going into bookstores and buying her book. So it was about that same time. So poetry was very much on people's minds. And so then that kind of ignited it, and I couldn't stop writing. It's sort of, and I've seen it with other poets as well. Once you discover it, the floodgates kind of open. And so I wrote so many poems that first year, and being able to go out and perform them, you wanted to write something new each time you went and did something. So that helped as well. So there was like a lot of, I was churning a lot out. So I guess it really kicked off, around the same time, sort of like 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago.
Oh, wow. And when you when you perform a poem, is there like a rehearsal process for it? Do you think about the melody of your voice or the timing or any of that?
Yeah, I think I write with a certain, I think I really love the sounds of words. So I love the rhythm, and I love the texture, and I love the way that you can create your own rhythm as well. And there kind of aren't any rules with poetry, which is the kind of opposite from the way we're taught it in school. So there's a load of freedom with it. And I think with that freedom, I definitely do kind of, I'm thinking about the beat, not strictly, like not with a structure, but when I'm piecing a poem together, I kind of feel like, okay, look, there's a beat there with that word, and I want to punctuate that line and that the meaning of that line with creating a pause, or I guess I do. It's interesting once it's locked down, once I've said it out loud in a public forum. Usually it doesn't really deviate from the way I say it, which people have come up to me and they said, oh, it sounded like you improvised that. And it's interesting because it doesn't tend to change that much once it's locked, which is, so, and definitely before going and doing like an open mic, I'll get out my poem and kind of remind myself of it and reread it. And so there is a little bit of that. And definitely, I think lots of poets say, reading your stuff out loud to yourself is one of the key aspects of like editing your work as well. But nowhere near as much rehearsal as dancers. But I definitely review, and it kind of can take different shapes. So the process, I guess the process of writing and editing, that's sort of the rehearsal aspect to it.
Was it a big change for you then to do it with live music and a lot of stuff going on at the same time? Like you had movement, you had music. Did that influence the way you delivered the poem? Did you do it differently than you would have had done it without anything else going on, or were you just like in your little bubble? And
no, it's a real gift. I guess you would experience this as well, like the difference between doing a solo piece and then when you're in an ensemble. Like I find it a real gift to have that collaboration, and because you feel like this backup, like you feel like there's this kind of symbiotic connection when you're there with musicians on stage, and they want it to sound good, so they're doing their best and you're doing your best, and so it's like this lovely kind of circle of energy. And I remember I felt very like it kind of hit my heart in a different way to when I'm just there doing it on my own, because your focus is forward, whereas the focus was sort of like all around me and all around us as performers up on stage. And it's a real gift. Like I would perform with a band all the time if I could, and it was just magic, because the way Jessica, who was the saxophonist, had heard it, and one of my favorite people ever is Alice Coltrane. And I listen to her when I write all the time. I listen to her constantly. And in my workshops, I play her music, and I get the sip and rhymers to write to her music as well. So when she heard me, I sent her a recording of me reading the poem. And then when she heard me read it, she was like, this goes with an Alice Coltrane track. I'm going to do like my own arrangement of it. And that was just a gift. It was really cool because we were meeting each other through the work and the words and the music. And I don't think I'd actually met Jess even at that point. I think we'd had like one Zoom. And so it was just, I liked that as well, like how it all fitted so well, because I think our intention, I think that's the other thing with creativity in general and putting on events especially is what's your intention, and it's quite amazing like when your intention is sort of pure or whatever it may be, and loads of different components go into putting on events, and so many different things can go wrong, but up until that point, and once people are there and they're sat in their seats and ready to go, it's quite amazing the magic that can happen purely because you've maintained this intention of we want to gather together, we want to raise up the consciousness about female artists and female performers. And I think everyone understood that, and with that understanding we created something really beautiful.
Is there like a divide between female poets and male poets? Is there such a thing as like a gender advantage?
That's a good question. I think it is more that is a good question. So I don't think you're treated any differently from your male counterparts. But some of the nights, a lot of the nights are run by men. And so sometimes the lineup can be quite male heavy, but I think there's a consciousness also because you get a lot of poetry is directly discussing, gender roles and gender identity and the binary, like a lot of it at the moment. And so you can not be confronted by it. I think so that consciousness is raised by who goes on stage and the poets on stage. So I think it probably was a bigger boys' club because they were just like, getting together and putting on their mates, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's like I think the consciousness has been raised by how honest and upfront and obviously it's very vocal and how vocal all us poets are. So there's not really, you kind of do have to constantly check yourself. You do have to adapt, I think, if you are someone who, has a limited sphere or pool of people that you're connecting with. So I think on that side of things, it is quite equal, but I will say a lot of the nights are run by men. And so it is really fun to go to female-led events, and which isn't strictly about like everything must be about women. It's not like that, but it's just fun to see other women organizing it and doing it. And so yeah. I think there is quite a lot of I kind of joke that the only kind of demographic that isn't represented in poetry are like Tories and conservatives, as the conservative politically minded individuals. They're not really you don't see a lot of that at least at the nights that I go to. But other than that, it's like you see everything and you hear everything.
Because they're normally the victim of all the spoken word poetry.
Yeah, they're the biggest target for sure. Yeah.
It's funny, but it's. I think the great thing I spoke before this one. I had a podcast recording with another friend of mine, and she uses dance, film, and spoken word, and we talked a little bit about it. That sometimes you just need a little bit of spoken word to get a clear picture across, because a lot of the other art forms you can interpret a lot. So with movement, even though if you have an intention of expressing something, it doesn't mean that the person watching will actually get a specific idea that you're trying to get across. Or with a painting, there's always this element of you can imagine things into it, whereas poetry is very direct. Like if you I mean, there's also poetry, I guess, where it's vague and you can still interpret it the way you want to, but like there's like a certain power that comes with words that is very concrete.
Yeah, I think we are quite lucky in that way that there's still room for interpretation, but you're right, like you do get to exalt and really express to what's been on your mind. And yeah, and I guess it kind of starts conversations where you can be quite direct, which sometimes, sometimes you're going to go to nights and it is very, society and and there's lots of poems about we call it catcalling here, where it's like men are like, smile darling, like there's lots of poems about being harassed on public transport and things by like pervy men. There's lots, and it has its place, like it is those poems and those stories, they're important, but also I'm of the ilk where how much imagination does that take? So I do like to work with how can I sort of push the audience. I don't know if I necessarily, that's an interesting one as well, because when you're like, again with dance, like how much should we be paying attention to what the audience can pick up on? Because at the end of the day, do you know what I mean? Like how much, like, how much should that be a concern? And I think it goes back to this idea of what are you trying to say? And if you're satisfied with how that comes across, and how then you have no control over what the audience is going to do about it, that's kind of the fun punk thing. You'll be like, well, this is it, so do what you want with it. I think.
You said you started your own poetry night soon after you started performing poetry. What was some of the challenges that comes with, putting on an event like that yourself, especially in like, in the beginning?
Yeah, that is a good question. Well, I think at the beginning there's a lot of self-doubts, because basically it's like you're organizing your birthday party and freaking out that no one will turn up. And you kind of put yourself through that month in, month out. So there was quite a lot of self-doubt, but there was just this, I did have this like fire that, no, I've committed to it, I'm going to do it, it's going to happen. And the other challenges I faced at the beginning was the venue. So that's kind of how it was born. We sort of lived in an area that nothing really was going on, Elephant and Castle, and suddenly all these high-rise apartment buildings were there, and suddenly there were all these people there who had like money to spend, and with that comes new businesses, and like, we say like bougie cafes and restaurants and things. And there was this wine bar, and we right on the corner of where my partner lived at the time, and my ex partner, but and it was this wine bar, and we went in, and he said, I want to make it sort of like a community sort of hub, and give back and have sort of creative things going on. It's like, okay, cool. And I'm a poet, and I hadn't I wasn't that well known, so I was scared about putting on an open mic, because I thought that's too much pressure, that's too many people to expect to come. And so I did want to do this workshop, because my whole thing was, I want to give what I got from it, which is this sense of community and this catharsis and all this abundance. I wanted to show other people that existed. And so the owner was good at what he did in terms of wine and things. But when people say, I want my place to be like this creative community hub, that's not necessarily what they mean, especially if you're like a business where you rely on your sales of your alcohol and things like that. So that was a challenge where everyone was loving it and loving coming, but they weren't buying his pricey glasses of wine because they got really into the poetry. So that was a challenge, where the event felt great when it was occurring, but he was sort of, on my back to like make his business money. And it was sort of like, I appreciate that you've given me this space, but I don't care about your, I can't take on worrying about your profits. So I eventually, and then it was just like, it kind of created this bad atmosphere around wanting to do it. And so I did it there for a good like 7 months, I think. And then one day I was just like, no, I don't want to bring it into your space because it does have this sort of like animosity around it. So that was a bit of a challenge in the first venue. And yeah, just combating self-doubt is another one, because the biggest, I think you tested this as well, like so many different things can go wrong, but you're never going to figure it out unless you do it. And I have a lot of people who came to Sip and Rhyme, and then afterwards would be like, oh, can you help me set up my event? And it was like, you don't actually need me, like you have all the tools. This is I make my posters on Canva, and and a lot of the people that come, it has been through word of mouth. And through my mouth, it's like I've gone to these events and I've said, look, you should come along to this. So it is very grassroots and old school. And so, yeah, the biggest challenge is being mean to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest challenge. And then like finding a venue where you feel, they don't have to hold your hand, but it's just nice to be in a venue where you can be relaxed and just your main focus has to be the people in the room, not what the profits are for the venue, basically.
Yeah, I think that's a problem with a lot of events that happen in venues that could have paying customers there instead.
Yeah.
Because I know like at Ronnie Scott's used to have a lot of gigs upstairs that were live gigs, but the reason most of them got replaced is because people just sat there listening and didn't buy drinks at the bar. Combined with like a certain tap water culture in Britain anyway, that like people just ask for tap water like as like a normal thing. Like in Germany, you buy water, like you always buy a drink. It's kind of rude not to like to sit in a venue and not to buy a drink. I kind of get both sides, because also I get that if somebody attends a poetry workshop, they might not want to pay £15 for a glass of wine, like, or 3 while they're there. But at the same time, if you have like a venue and you have 20 people and they're drinking tap water and you like have to hire someone to wash the glasses, and
it circulates.
it's definitely a challenge, especially when you're starting out with anything. Like even me with tap dance, a lot of times kind of the venue gets the bar and I get the door. And if there's no bar, then the venue wouldn't be happy to do the same arrangement again,
Totally. No, it definitely is like you definitely have to circulate. And like obviously like he did have the wine bar, is that challenge was always going to come up. And I did think I would have people doing like drunk poetry, but they really like with the Ronnie Scott's thing, they did really get into it. Yeah, but it does circulate back, and it is, I do think, yeah, I would probably always try and buy a drink, because I know that if they're paying my friends who are performing, then it's because it's out of the bar money. So it does circulate. And I definitely want to have my own venue. And so it's like, yeah, I'm going to rely on bar and food sales in order to keep things cooking and putting on the things that we all want to see. So yeah, I think, I don't know if you felt this, but I think the appreciation of all the moving parts in terms of like venue and promoters and the artists, I feel like there's been more of an appreciation since and because of lockdown and COVID, because we all need each other, and it's like, yeah, so I think that's shifted a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes you don't know what you have until it's gone. So
Mm.
we're kind of in this position now. We didn't know what we had, then it was gone, but then we got it back, which is like the strange situation COVID, created.
Yes.
Is it something you kind of working towards, is to have your own venue?
Yeah, I'm talking with Nolan, who is the jazz club owner at Toulouse-Lautrec. I am talking to him about maybe doing a mini sort of takeover in August, because he usually closes the jazz club because London, yeah, everyone vacates for summer, like a lot of other places. And so I'm kind of hoping that that goes ahead, and using it as a little mini pop-up idea. And yeah, I know it will take a lot of work, but I think, yeah, I'm kind of itching. I'm itching to do it. So this year will be a lot of, feeling out the gaps in my knowledge that I want to improve on, and then starting to crunch the numbers and think about how realistic it is. Because in in a metropolis, it's quite saturated with lots of different things going on. So I do want something that stands out and is obviously a success, but also, yeah, that's something I'm definitely looking towards. So hopefully next year run another kind of pop-up, even if it's for 6 weeks or the whole summer or something. And just, I think that's kind of going to be my aim, sort of do it incrementally, and then, yeah, get my own venue. It would be amazing. I would love that.
That would be amazing. Are there any poetry? I know in Covent Garden, isn't there a poetry cafe or something like that?
Yeah, the Poetry Cafe is it's really cute. It's definitely yeah, I haven't been since everything has opened up, so I should go. So yeah, you have the Poetry Cafe, the Poetry Library in South Bank is really beautiful, and you can just go there and write and pick up any poetry book you want. That's really awesome. I love the poetry section at Foyles on Tottenham Court Road. That's probably the best poetry section that I've seen and been to. Yeah, so those are kind of the top three.
Mm-hmm.
I three hangs, I would say, that are like specifically for poetry.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever thought about, or have you ever published any of your poetry?
Yeah, I'm dying to, and I really need to get on and write a collection. So last year I was lucky enough that my best friend is an artist. This is his painting. Like in a moon thing. That was from ages ago. But we both read tarot,
Yeah.
and he designed a tarot deck. I can get it actually. Oh, he designed a tarot deck, and he asked me to do poems for it. And so, yeah, I did poems in the guidebook for the major arcana. So this is my first like published per se. So then this is the little book, and we got some. It's so cute. This is about the card. So okay, so the last card in the major arcana is the world, and it's about closure, wholeness, a new chapter. And the major arcana is when you have like your death card and your devil card and the star and the sun and the moon. So it's kind of like takes you on this spiritual journey, which ends with this closure that you have in the world. And I'll try and get the card out. So yeah, that's where I was first published. But the tricky thing is that I go all over the shop with my themes and my tones. And so I've written probably like 200 poems or something, and like no joke, in the past 4 years. And it's about piecing together, because obviously with your first collection, you can always be like, look, this is my poetry from 2018 to 2020. But I do want to create something a bit more, con- conceptual, and that has a thread running through it. And so and also that's I don't know if you find, yeah, you must find this as well, where because you're constantly changing, your perspective is going to change, and so it's interesting because you have to sift through and try not to poo-poo poems from the very beginning, because it's like, no, they were important and they have an essence of you, even though it may not sound exactly as you do now. So that's quite interesting as well, sort of sifting through and what looks good side by side. So it's it's basically putting together a puzzle. And so I really want to do that. I'd love to do that by the end of this year for sure. Have a little collection out. Oh yeah, okay. So here's the world's card.
Looks like me.
Oh yeah, it's you dancing. And you want the poem?
Yeah. Can you read it to us?
Yes. So this calls for a celebration, for the cycle is complete. You've booked the ticket. Now you're well on your way. So revel in this red carpet moment. Cast a spell and turn it into a magic one. Take flight in line with the start of the new moon. The watchful eye of the multiverse, your ancestors, your choices are kindly blinking. Open and close, open and close. A tender, soft acknowledgement that you are worthy and deserving.
Oh, that's so nice. That's almost like a prayer. Like, I bet if people would say that every day in the morning, they'd have a really good day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yes. Yeah, I do like to do little. I found that quite, even if I'm writing a gloomy poem, I always have to sign it off with a little, I guess they are kind of like little prayers, but I always have to sign it off with something promising at the end, which is quite, yeah, I think that does say quite a lot about me. Like, okay, this is gloomy, but like, let's look to what's next. So
That's cool. And when you do like workshops or those writing prompts, what kind of exercises do you do?
So I love coming up with these as well. It's so much fun. And my whole thing is, I'm not here to tell you how to write a poem. I'm just here to give you the space to express yourself. And I'm going to give you little prompts that you could use all the time if you wanted to. And so, for instance, one of the very, very, very first events we did, which was 3 years ago, around this time, and the theme was future, because it was the new year. So, what do you want out of your future? And I think I said, go on your phone, and you're going to write a 10-line poem about the last photo you took. And it didn't matter if it was a screenshot of a map or your food from your restaurant, or sometimes you take photos of like, oh, I need this light bulb, can you pick it from the shop? It was like, doesn't matter what it is, just write a poem about it. So that was one. And then I think I invented this idea for that very first one, and I repeat it, and you saw it at Resonance as well, and I call them poetry portraits. And this is like, I need to copyright this, I think. Copyright Joly Licks, sip and rhyme. But basically what I do is I pair people off with a stranger, and they have a couple minutes to say what their life has been like and what they want for the next chapter, for the next season or whatever. And so the two people share, they take it in turns, and then you have to write a poem about your partner based on what they've told you. So basically, you get to see yourself through someone else's eyes. And usually a stranger is a lot more giving about and loving to you, even if they haven't met you, than you are about yourself. So you get these really kind of candid poems, and I kind of call them manifestation poems as well. And it's just nice seeing your wishes reflected back onto you, because somehow it's easier to see from the outside than for yourself. So I really love that exercise. We did I did a whole theme around postcards, because you can go on eBay and get a bunch of, you can get like big old stacks of vintage postcards, and a lot of them have writing on them. A lot of them have been sent to people. So you get these little messages. Being in England, so many of them like, oh yes, we just got to the seaside and the weather is lovely, da 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 da. Lots about the weather from these English stacks. But then, yeah, you had to write a response to ones with writing on, and or write a short story. And so that's been one. And then another one which is really fun, I did it for this really campy, vampy Christmas show that I did just in December. And that's when I give them words to pop songs, and they have to rewrite the pop songs, or it's not necessarily pop, but like, yeah, I did like a 90s themed one, and I picked a bunch of 90s pop songs and we had to rewrite those. So that was really fun.
That's crazy. I never thought about it in that way.
Yeah.
Obviously there's like different forms of poetry, and like the first probably stereotype that you have is that it needs to rhyme. But poetry can be pretty much anything, right? But like, where would the distinction be between just writing a paragraph and a poem?
I mean, that's a good question, because you have something called prose poetry, which is basically paragraphs, and you write in paragraphs. So the distinction, maybe it is, I don't know what I'd love to hear your take on it, but maybe it is in the performance. Maybe that makes a slight difference. Like, but then again, it's tricky because some stuff you write is better on the page, and it doesn't mean that it's a bad poem, it's just a better page poem than it is spoken. So what would the difference be? I guess like how I was taught playwriting and I loved it, and so I take this across any form, but in playwriting we were taught every single word has to count, like even in your stage directions, like why are they scratching their head in this scene, and why is the door open, and what made you want them to say, you know, that line about the porcupine. You have to have sort of a reason for everything. And maybe, I guess if you take, okay, so if you take a haiku, for instance, they call them, so that's a Japanese form where it's quite a strict syllabic form. We have 3 lines, so they can be very, very cute and very, very beautiful. You have 3 lines where the first line is 5 syllables, the second line is 7 syllables, and the last line is 5 syllables, so 5, 7, 5. And they're often described as mood poems because you can't, because it's like you're capturing a mood. You can't be too descriptive because you only got a little amount of space. So I guess maybe that's a distinction I would make as well, is they can be just about a mood or a feeling, whereas maybe a paragraph of text, there's some action and characterization in a story, which you absolutely can do in poetry. But maybe that's the difference, where they can be little nuggets and windows of a mood and a feeling, and that can be all that it is. And maybe that's the difference, I would say.
Yeah, I've never actually thought about it. It just popped into my head when you described the writing prompts you use.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah. I'll read you a few poems.
Yeah.
So, Petra, this I wrote while I was watching you perform.
Ooh.
With Hailin Kim, who is this amazing Korean flautist, and their relationship on stage was super stunning and beautiful to watch, and it just was really special. And so this is a tiny little improvised poem I wrote for you guys. Flights of fancy, cloud-busting resonance, grasping for invisible spots of pure magic. Contortions created by a windfall of golden blossom. Lean, lean, lean. I'll hold space for you as you hold space for me. Circulate breath as if you were grasping dreams. Flurry, flurry moments of contention eased with absolute beauty. The music took over, the elements combined, everything held in your wand. Shoulders up and across and still and peace. Ma, see. Hold bright memory, goodness in your heart. Let it spill out of your pores with the sweat down the spine. Feel heat in your bones. There is a safe space of kindness, written, unwritten communication, carried on the wind, carried on the wind. Yeah, it was so beautiful. And there was real sweat coming off of both of you. And it was, I don't know, I read that as like this like energy, and you putting everything into it. I really like that watching you, Petra, because I can see you're putting every like inch of yourself into it, which is really like fun and amazing to watch as well.
The thing is with Hailem and I, like we actually also we met on stage pretty much, and she had in the first resonance I did, she started to move, and she had never like done that before, but she just joined me in a duet, so it was like the most natural thing because she just like started moving closer to me, and then we ended up doing this duet, and I'm like, wow, that was amazing. And she's like, well, I don't know, I just couldn't not start moving. And it's so amazing because I feel like it's so special when you meet someone that you share this kind of energy with.
Yeah, it was such a good connection that it was unbelievable that you'd only done it once before, and unbelievable that, you know, you hadn't rehearsed even. It was so, yeah, it was really, really magic.
I feel like this poem like really shows you can say more with less words, because I feel like what you don't say makes what you say go so much deeper.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's good to give space to things, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I think we do learn that in all practices. Like, stillness in dance is just as important as movement when you're doing a piece. And it's like blank space in a piece of artwork can say something when there's a huge amount of color on the other side of the canvas. And I think that's an important thing that you learn the more you do it, I think, with words. Because yeah, at the beginning you're just sort of, the floodgates are open and you just spew it all out. You just like throw it all out on the wall and see what kind of sticks. And I remember like a video of my first headline set, which was maybe like the third time reading poetry, and I was so quick. I read so quickly because you're nervous, first of all. And so figuring out how to pace myself, that was a big task as well. And that just takes practice really. But yeah, I think, and also I'm a very chatty, loud, kind of talkative person. So it's really nice to figure out how to be in like my center and to bring it down a bit and bring down and play with the level of energy. And so yeah, thanks.
Yeah, it's great. Do you have another
Okay.
one?
Okay, I have two more for you. They're both short and they're both lovely for a Sunday, because this is a Sunday here in London town. So wait, I gotta get it up. This one is For the Forest, I call it. I'm a giver. People take, I still give, never silent, never still, fed by sun, earth and moon, just like you, except bigger. I'm a giver. I'm aware of all the ancestors floating through our bowels. No colony, monarchy, or general will fill the purest pride I do. As above, I give. So below, I give. As in one, I give. As in all, I give. I'm a giver. Try to renounce the idea of taking. Protect your spirit and your mind from the poachers and thieves. I'm so given, I'll even let you take a trip and a dip within my trees, from highest nest to ground of fossils, pine needles, and insects. I'm a giver. Try to give a little too. And that's that one.
That's so nice. That's also very kind of prayer-like to me. It's like a mantra.
Yeah, I like doing little mantras. Yeah, because it was the prompt was write a poem about the forest, and I was tuning into what a forest represents and what a forest does for us, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're just giving all the time, and no matter how much we like abuse our landscapes and nature, it will always return and give back. And so that's where that came from. And I wanted to go into that space of lying in a forest, which is really luxurious and fun. Okay, I think I've got to show you that I do different different modes. I got two more for you. One, and they're both very short, but one is one of the earlier poems that I wrote, and it goes like, oh, and it also was featured in Zebra Film Festival, which I have to come and see in Berlin, and it's a poetry film festival, and I collaborated with my friend Christina Villa-Nadal, who's an incredible filmmaker, and she did this cute little short. So it goes. Glitter in the gutter, did I make you sputter? Glitter bomb, glitter thong, glitter on the dawn, glitter on the moon, glitter gun, glitter fun, glitter out of vase tricks, glitter on the floor lies, glitter rave, glitter for days, glitter shimmer shimmer. Glitter in the gutter, is there a unicorn on the loose? A glitter shaman, glitter factory explosion? So now the gutter be full of glitter. Glitter top, glitter glitterati, glitter ball, glitter bum, glitter up, glitter wow, glitter on my shoulders, don't want it on my tongue, glitter on my tongue. Glitter in my crevices, glitter marks my messes, glitter race, glitter post, glitter gutter shimmer shimmer.
That is so
That's that
fun.
one.
That's not what I expected after the first two. Glitter.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a super fun one.
Yeah, super fun.
And it was from a bunch of glitter in the gutter. That's what I saw it
I'm gonna see the film now.
And the funny thing was, we sent it off to these film festivals because I was like, we have to, because it's 38 seconds and it's hilarious and cute. Like, how could they not go for it? You know what I mean?
So
and then
was 38 seconds?
Yeah, it's
Wow.
nothing because the poem is so short. And then it went to this really cute American festival. This goes back to like interpretation, and we sent it off to these different festivals, and I was amazed how many poetry film festivals there were again, like being quite
I've never heard of one.
I know, the biggest one is in Berlin and it's called Zebra and it's pretty amazing, and we should have probably gone again, but this one went to the Midwest and they were really adorable, and they did like a little Q&A after, and one of the organizers was like, I saw it as an interpretation of, you know, plastic waste, and she read it in this really like kind of morbid way, and I guess you could read it that way, but I was like, no man, it's just about some glitter in the gutter.
What were you inspired by to write this?
I literally saw a bunch of glitter in the gutter, and I thought, I love that dichotomy of something so sparkly and shiny and fun in something that we all consider, you know, kind of gross and dirty. And I loved that. And it was glitter in the gutter. That was it. That was the hook. And then I went home and I just wrote it really quickly. I think that's the other thing. Like, I hear sounds I hear like a lot of time I'll hear the rhythm and the sound, and it's like a hook. It's like a song's hook for me, and then I'll just go. Like, that was the same with I'm a Giver. I was like, they're like, okay, the forest is so giving. It's so giving. and what message does the forest want us to know? And then it was like that I'm a giver. And so yeah, I think that definitely helps me a lot. So that's something that's like another tip as well. It's like you know, pay attention to what you're to pay attention to some of your rambling internal monologue thoughts, because there could be like a little nugget. And that's another thing, if you do write a lot but it's not necessarily poetry yet, going back and seeing and okay, I like those two words together, and then extracting them and making something new out of it is always, you can always recycle. I think like it's funny when in those poems I use the word, I think ancestors does come up quite a bit as well. So it's interesting what words you repeat as well, because of where you are in that time period as well. Like I remember I was obsessed, I definitely use breath and breathing to help kind of center myself and like in meditation. And I was doing a load of meditation, and then there was like a lot of like exhale and inhale in my poems, and I had to go back and find different words for like breathing. So you will see like running themes. You must get that as well with dance, when you like there's like a phrase that you want to repeat or carry on.
A lot of times when I do these improvised things, I kind of react to the music. So it's I kind of surrender to the music, but with tap dance, more so than contemporary, I think I create patterns just so other people actually have a chance to realize what's going on. Because if you just bulldozer through, I mean, that's my natural inclination to just go balls to the wall, but sometimes it's nice to stick with like one rhythm or one theme for a while, so people can actually recognize it and feel at home a little bit.
Yeah, I like that. Giving them a little anchor. Yeah, that's true. I like that. I'm gonna check that out when I see you next.
Funny pattern. Said breath, because Hailem and we once did a day of rehearsal where we just tried to explore some ideas with movement and how we can incorporate each other's art forms, and we actually decided to use audible breathing, like breathe audibly, as a common ground, because both of us breathe. She has to breathe to use her instrument because she plays flute, and I have to breathe because I have to, need air. But it's funny how it affects you, because when if I inhale a lot of air, then my chest is full of air. It's like a balloon. Your back becomes stiffer. So it actually directly affects the way I move with how much air is in my lungs.
Ooh, yeah, that was, you could see that. That was really, it really is a powerful thing. Like I remember growing up and obviously having, you're a teenager and you have like bouts of anxiety because the world is like a lot. And my mother would, and I used to really annoy me, but my mother would say like, okay, have you eaten? And I think this is me being at university, so away from home. And she was like, have you eaten any fruit? How much water have you drunk? And have you gone for like a walk? And like, been breathing properly? Like, have you like been breathing? and at the time you're like, no, you don't understand me. Da, 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 da. But as you grow up, you're like, oh no, that is actually just really good advice. Like those very basic human functions, and making sure you're being kind to yourself and paying attention. So breath. And I guess with poetry as well, there's a lot of I guess paying attention to my breath again, like helps me with pace. So that's really wonderful to hear, that relationship that you had with each other's breath. It's really cool. And finding a link. Last poem. So definitely would write quite a lot on commutes, because in London you're crossing the whole town. You can cross the whole town and it takes like an hour or an hour and 10 minutes, or it depends. So usually when you're going anywhere, it's going to take like 40 minutes, right? And so you have these long long-ish journeys, and that's where a lot of I wrote quite a lot of things doing that, and that was something that you miss when you can't go anywhere. And I remember this is the first poem I wrote being traveling on a bus again, and it was I was on the night bus, so it was like 11 o'clock at night, and I was watching a woman eat a hard-boiled egg, and it felt like a very funny, and she did it anyway, you'll see in the poem how she did it. She ate an egg so slow, little munches masticate, like her lips wanted to caress it, like it was all she had eaten that day, like it was as sweet and juicy as a peach. But it was just an egg, a hard-boiled egg. I kept on back for later egg. Remained in bag for a solitary moment, sweet injection of protein, savor my thirst for something to taste. My esophagus work, my stomach stopped talking to me. My hands feel wanted, my senses less deprived. Let the egg be a placeholder for a hug or a touch or a love. That's quite a lot for an egg.
That made my day.
Yay! That's what we like to do.
Awesome. Oh, I can't believe that you brought that on a bus. It's so great. I feel like as soon as you start doing art, everything around you becomes art.
Yes, it's so true. It does open your eyes, and there's joy and fun to it as well, which I think, yeah, that's beautifully put. Like, open your eyes, and it'll be okay.
Thank you so much for sharing this with us and coming on the podcast.
Thank you, thank you.
Find out more about you.
Yes.
And yeah, whatever you send me, I'm gonna link in the description box so people can also find out about you or attend your events. And it works out with Toulouse LOFT.
Okay, thank you so much, Petra. This is really fun.